The first time my husband brought him up, I didn't give it much thought. It was a calm Thursday night, the kind that passes quietly without leaving any memory behind. We were having dinner when Mark looked at me and, in a relaxed, almost casual way, asked, "Are you sure that guy from your office isn't getting a bit too familiar with you?" I smiled, shook my head, and brushed it off immediately. "He's just a colleague," I replied, completely convinced that there was nothing more to it. What I failed to notice at the time wasn't just his words, but the way he said them. In more than 20 years of marriage, Mark had never been the jealous kind. He never questioned my friendships or doubted the people around me. His trust had always been steady and unquestioned. That's why I should have paid closer attention when he finally sensed something. We had built a simple and peaceful life together. By our late 50s, the house had grown quieter since our kids had left for college. Our evenings followed the same routine, making dinner, watching television, and talking about our day. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable and comforting. Then I started a new job. After spending 16 years at the same company, entering a new workplace felt refreshing. The office was livelier, the employees younger, and the pace much faster. That's where I met Jason. He was friendly, confident, and naturally easy to be around. During my first week, he helped me adjust, explain the systems, and introduce me to others. It all seemed like simple kindness from a coworker helping me settle in. As time passed, we began talking more about work, weekend plans, and random office conversations. It felt normal and harmless, and I never thought twice about it. But Mark did. Jason's name started coming up more often in my stories, a late night finishing a project together, a joke he cracked during a meeting. To me, these were small, insignificant details, but to someone paying attention, they meant something more. One afternoon, while we were folding laundry, Mark said, "You talk about him quite a lot." I quickly dismissed it. "We just work closely together." He nodded, but I could tell his mind was still on it. A few weeks later, there was a company dinner, and spouses were invited. Mark came with me, and that night he met Jason for the first time. Jason was exactly how I had described him: charming, confident, and easy to talk to. He started a conversation with Mark right away, as if they had known each other for years. Still, something felt different. Mark remained polite, but I noticed he became quieter whenever Jason joined us. He watched more than he spoke. On the way home, he finally said, "There's something about that guy." I laughed lightly. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain it," he said, keeping his eyes on the road. "He just seems a little too interested in you." Again, I brushed it off. To me, Jason was simply being friendly. "You're overthinking it," I replied. Mark didn't argue. He never did. He simply let it go. But the small things continued. Jason began messaging me after work. At first, it was about projects, but slowly those conversations turned more casual. It didn't feel inappropriate, but it was definitely more frequent than with anyone else. One evening, I was replying to his message while sitting on the couch when Mark glanced over. "Still talking to him?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "We're just finishing something for work." He nodded, then said softly, "Just be careful how much access you give people to your life." I didn't take his words seriously. I trusted myself. I believed I knew exactly what I was doing. Then one evening at the office, everything changed. Most people had already left. I was packing up when Jason approached me and asked if we could talk. His tone was different, more serious. We walked into an empty conference room. He shut the door, paused for a moment, and then said something I wasn't ready to hear. "I know you're married, but I feel like there's something between us." In that moment, everything shifted in my mind. All the conversations, messages, and small interactions I had ignored suddenly looked different. What I had seen as harmless, he had clearly understood in another way. A heavy feeling settled in my stomach. "I think you're mistaken," I said calmly. "I'm happily married, and I've never given you a reason to believe otherwise." He looked disappointed, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded, said he understood, and left it at that. But for me, it didn't end there. During the entire drive home, Mark's words echoed in my thoughts. When I arrived, he was in the kitchen cooking, just like any other evening. He smiled when he saw me, unaware of what had happened. I stood there for a moment before saying, "You were right." He turned off the stove and looked at me. What happened? I told him everything. He listened quietly, no interruptions, no strong reactions like I had expected. When I finished, he simply nodded. I had a feeling something like that might happen, he said. I asked him how he had seen it when I couldn't. He gave a small, thoughtful smile. Sometimes it's easier to see things clearly when you're not in the middle of it. That was all. No anger, no I told you so, just quiet understanding. The next day at work, I set clear boundaries. My conversations with Jason became strictly professional. No more casual messages, no blurred lines. Within a few weeks, the distance became obvious and the situation faded away. At home, life returned to normal. Dinners, quiet evenings, and the same steady routine. But something inside me had changed. I realized that trust in a marriage isn't only about believing in each other. It's also about truly listening, especially when your partner notices something you don't. Because sometimes what feels like overthinking isn't overthinking at all. Sometimes, it's simply someone paying closer attention than you are.